Hi, I'm Ash and welcome to this foil review for the DuoTone Whizz. The items in this review are the DuoTone Whizz 1000 with S185 tail, which is fitted to a 66cm aluminium fuselage, and the SLS 90cm carbon mast. I will also be riding this with the P185 stabiliser that normally comes with the glide. The Whizz is DuoTone's latest foil and is marketed as specifically designed for dedicated prone or wake foiling. However, wing foiling is also highlighted as an area of great potential for this foil. Let's take a look at the foil itself, and there are some very interesting and unique design concepts going on. Some forward sweep along the trailing edge of the foil had some people alluding to it being like an Axis Spitfire, but this is where the similarities end. The foil has dihedral, which is very uncommon, and the overall shape and thickness of the foil is entirely different to that of the Spitfire. This shaping also extends to the tail stabiliser, making a foil pretty much anything unlike I've ridden before, so this should make for some interesting riding. The foil has an AR of 8.5 and an overall span of 92cm, with the obvious stat of 1000cm squared for the overall area of the foil, hence the name Whizz 1000. As usual, our foil reviews take a certain structure, and this covers pumping onto foil, low speed, high speed, glide, pump, jumping, breaching, tip stall, surfing, chop handling, and overall manoeuvrability. I will say up front that this foil is not designed around jumping. The DuoTone Carve is designed for that, and as such I won't be covering that particular attribute for this foil. Before we move on to the performance review, I just want to briefly talk about the construction and quality and fitment of the various parts. Firstly, we have the connection of the foil to the fuselage, and I have to say I really like how this is done. There is a shaped cutout built into the foil itself, but it is very shallow. This means the thickness of the carbon or the integrity of the foil at the root connection point is maintained, with the cutout ensuring that it fits snugly and does not move. T45 screws are used to secure the main foil, 3 in a row, which is more than adequate to secure the foil. For the fuselage to carbon mast connection, a similar system is employed with a shallow cutout that inserts onto the mast and creates a snug, non-moving connection, and then 3 T45 screws are also used to secure this into place. The finish and overall fitment of this system is superb, and I haven't seen better. Lastly, the carbon mast is bolted to the board using countersunk screw holes, not slots, so there is a little inconvenience in lining up screws to bolt the mast to the board. DuoTone do sell a mast track spacer for the T-nuts to help with this. Of course, slots are more convenient here, but holes are stronger. With the structure of the review covered, let's move on and get into the performance characteristics of this foil. Let's start with pumping onto foil. The Whizz has a very low stall speed, exceptionally low for its overall size at 1000cm squared. This means that the foil does come up really quite quickly and without needing a huge amount of board speed. The lift comes in reasonably strongly, so little front foot pressure is required to control the foil as it starts to lift. Once up, the foil stabilises and the front foot pressure is reduced. Although you can kick this foil up, it prefers not to do that and is easier just to speed onto foil rather than trying to force it up. It does have the low stall speed, which is quite forgiving and stops nasty dropouts as you're coming onto foil. In terms of high speed, this is not a particularly fast foil. I wouldn't say it is slow either, perhaps slightly below average for its size. It is not designed to be a fast foil, but more to have a very low stall speed, so the foil thickness plays a role here in limiting the overall top speed. This low stall characteristic also carries into glide. Whilst it has a little bit of glide, this is accentuated by how slow it will go before stalling, rather than it being a foil with a very shallow glide angle. I think it's important here not to confuse glide with low stall speed. The glide is distinctly average, it just feels like it has more glide due to how slow it will go before stalling out. In terms of pumping, it is very compliant and and you can easily pump this foil and also make good progress whilst pumping. Again, it is not an exceptionally fast foil when being pumped, but it's very forgiving and easy to pump. In terms of jumping, well, this isn't what this foil was designed to do. If you're after a freestyle foil for jumping, then the carve is a much better option. I did try a couple of jumps and it was not particularly tuned to this type of use. In terms of breaching, it has quite a good resistance to breaching and will skip the surface of the water without losing control and dropping out. Just be careful on how far you push this, as you can completely stall one side of the wing and it will roll quite aggressively as a result. For tip stall, or getting the tips of the foil out of the water in hard turns, this much depends on how you do it. If you make a very shallow angled breach of the tip, then you can stall out the foil on one side. However, if you turn aggressively and poke the tip out at a higher angle, then the foil is completely unaffected. I would say for hard aggressive turns, you can poke the tips out quite happily and not suffer any issues. But if you fly the foil close to the surface and push the tip out at a shallow angle, then you are asking much more of the foil, and you can stall or ventilate the foil on one side when you do this. I'm going to leave surfing and swell riding to last, so let's talk about chop handling. This really isn't where this foil excels, as it is so keen to turn, so chop and turbulent water leads to a lot of management and foil control to keep it going in a straight line. There are three areas I want to really focus on with this foil. Those are surfing, light wind and manoeuvrability. These things are what the Whizz was designed to do, and wow, does it do it well. For surfing, this foil is truly exceptional. I much prefer it to the Axis Spitfire for sheer manoeuvrability, but it also has a significantly better low end than the Spitfire. This means on the kind of messy, weak waves we tend to get in the south of the UK or in European waters, it really excels. At me on shore where I foil, we generally only get wind-blown swell. It is generally slow, weak waves, and there are a lot of dropouts where the swell just disappears. The Whizz makes this kind of swell not only easy to ride, but also fun. It has a high manoeuvrability and you can slash back and forth on a wave should you wish, or you can just use its exceptional low end and get much longer rides than you would get on a Spitfire or equivalent surf foil. The Whizz just extracts every little bit of power out of weak swell, and it pumps so easily that you can be going almost walking pace and it will just keep going without dropping out. If you typically sail wind-blown swell, lakes or generally choppy, messy swell, then this is the tool for the job. The Whizz, as already mentioned, is very loose and manoeuvrable. It constantly wants to turn and you have to concentrate a little to sail it in straight lines. This can be annoying in choppy conditions or for just mowing the lawn sailing up and down, but as soon as you get on a weak bit of swell, it all makes perfect sense. So for sailing in weak, choppy swell, this is absolutely my pick of the foils I've tried, but I also discovered it has another use case. That use case is light wind foiling. It has such a good low end and pump that you can foil it fairly easily in light winds. Plus the manoeuvrability and low stall speed make doing 360s, tacks and jives a lot less stressful in light wind conditions. You can also do very aggressive tacks in both heel and toe side, and it just excels at that really extreme carving that you can do in those types of manoeuvres. I had a lot of fun using the Whizz in light wind conditions. It carves turns so readily that you can really get quite aggressive with it even in low wind conditions. So with all this said, who is this for? Well, it isn't that easy of a foil to ride, as it is loose and wants to turn all the time, so it isn't really a beginner orientated foil. Yes, the low stall speed works for a beginner, but once up it is quite loose in both yaw and roll, and that isn't helpful for a beginner who wants their foil to be stable and forgiving. So this is aimed at intermediate and above foilers. If you want a light wind foil that delivers a lot of lift for its relative size and has outstanding carve, then that would fit nicely. However, I think the main selling point for this foil is how it can turn rubbish swell and surf into long rides that are actually fun. Given the design brief for this foil was prone or wake surfing, then the results here are probably not surprising. It does what DuoTone says it does, and it does it to a very high standard. I'd like to thank the Water Sports Centre for the use of the Whizz 1000 from their demo fleet. If you can show them some appreciation, then please do so. Links are in the description, and I'll see you on the next video.